Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be doing an album ranking video where I'm going to be looking at all of the studio albums by Jeff Lynne and ELO. So I'm going to be ranking those like in order. I think I did this video many years ago, probably at least well over 10 years ago now. And we have had a couple of albums released since then. So I thought that I would do like a refresher on this. So ELO were one of the first bands I really got into. It was probably really was like ABBA, then the Beatles, and then sort of like ELO like followed like a couple of years after. I think Jeff Lynne is an absolutely fantastic producer, fantastic songwriter, and they are a very nostalgic band. Like for me, like remind me like of like my youth like a fair bit. So yeah, I thought that I would like rank their albums. So I counted 17 albums in total. So that includes the core ELO albums plus 2 Jeff Lynne solo albums, and then 2 albums under the name Jeff Lynne's ELO. So we're going to be looking at all of those today. So yeah, we'll just get started with the list. So at number 17, in last place, I've got the Xanadu soundtrack. So yeah, I think probably a lot of people would probably not class this as a sort of like an official album, because it really actually is only the second side that is given over to ELO like songs. But like yeah, like it's like yeah, like the tracks like that are like on here though just really don't rank among my favourite like ELO songs, particularly like 2 of like well I was gonna say like 2 of like the singles, like, but I think that there were 4 singles released from this like from like ELO. So I'm not like so I've never been massive on like I'm Alive or Don't Walk Away. I think it's just a bit of a like run of the mill Jeff Lynne ballad. But I do really like The Fall. I think that's a really underrated track, and All Over the World like is a bit like of a classic as well. And then the only other ELO track on here is Xanadu, although that is sung by Olivia Newton-John and was also their only like #1 single. I don't mind like the song Xanadu. Like I know Jeff Lynne is really fond of it and like really likes that song, and I think ranks it among one of his favourites like he's ever wrote. But yeah, I'm just like not like super crazy like about like that one. So yeah, like overall in 17th place we've got Xanadu from 1980. Okay, let's start now at number 16. We are going back to like, well, I was gonna say like where it like all began, but there was a kind of band before this. So we've got like the Electric Light Orchestra self-titled debut album. Well, I say self-titled. It was actually like in like America, like I mean, you'll probably all know this story, but like in like America, like it was released like under the name No Answer, because when like the American record company were like sort of like ringing up like sort of like the UK, like they sort of like they got no answer like on like the phone. Someone noted that down, like saying yeah, there was no answer, but that then just by mistake became the album's name like in like America. So like I said, like this was like where it all began for ELO, but at this point it was very much like a kind of continuation slash kind of side project like off like The Move, who were like sort of like a Birmingham band like off like the 60s, led by Roy Wood for most of their career. But Jeff Lynne had joined a couple of years previously, and then kind of became like very much a kind of like integral member like of like The Move. So this album was recorded like at like the same time like as like The Move's like final studio album called like A Message from the Country, as a kind of experimental kind of like sort of like side project like in like a way. And I think it is a good album in the sense of like it like set the kind of like the ambition and the template like of like what like ELO like was like going to be, but it is a real mixed bag like of like material like on here. It ranges from the excellent like the brilliant like opening track 10538 Overture through like some like great other pieces of like chamber pop. Like, I think there's a Roy Wood track called Nelly Takes Her Bow, which is really nice, and then Mr. Radio like is like a little bit like sort of like set the template like a little bit like for like kind of like mid-70s period like ELO, I feel. But then there is some stuff like on here that just does not work at all. There's a track called The Battle of Marston Moor, which is a kind of, it's very medieval kind of sounding, and it's just all, like I'm not crazy like about that one. And I think the other thing with this album is that it was a true collaboration between Jeff and Roy Wood. So like Roy Wood like kind of gets like half like the tracks like on here. So that also like kind of like lets it down for me like a little bit. But it is an important record though. And this is where it falls on my list, number 16. So we go from the oldest album on my list to the newest album. So we've got number 15, which is From Out of Nowhere. Which you're probably going to struggle to see on this, because this is actually, like, I'll take it out like this sleeve, but this is a kind of, what's the word for this, thingy, animated kind of cover thing here. So if I hold it like that, you can, like, there's no cover on it at all. So that's really cool. Like, I do like that. It's probably, I'm going to be a bit cruel there, like I say, it's probably like one of like the best things about like the album. So this was a kind of funny one because it came out 2019 this was released, and like really at this point Jeff Lynne was really riding high, like sort of thing. Like he'd had like the big comeback tour, like an album like in 2015. He'd then played Wembley in I think 2018, like he played Wembley. So it was really like you know, like he was like had made his comeback basically. But this album just kind of feels to me very much like kind of leftovers from the previous album 2015's Alone in the Universe. And there's just not really anything that really grabs me like on like this album. I think it's also tainted as well a little bit. Like, I mean, it's not the album's fault, it's not Jeff's fault, but by unfortunate timing, like as well, because I said this came out November 2019, and then we all know what happened again like March like the following year. So basically tours cancelled, Jeff's kind of then back sort of like home, and like then like by the time that he did get back out like on like the road, like he appears a lot more frail, a lot more kind of like unable to basically perform. It was a real shame like seeing him like in like some of like those like concert clips like from like I think it was last year. But like so this might well end up being like his last album, which is a shame because I do think it is a little bit like of like a weak one. Strong tracks on here for me. From Out of Nowhere, the title track's pretty good, and then the only other one that I can really pick out as being really good is Sci-Fi Woman, which I think has got a kind of like sort of like time kind of era flavour, ELO. But a lot of the other tracks are just weak lyrically, particularly like there's two more tracks particularly like there's two tracks on here that are just quite self-referential. There's one called like Time of Our Life, which is about the Wembley concert, and then One More Time is a kind of like just a generic rock song about playing live, going out and rocking like in a band. So it just kind of feels like a little bit too kind of like self-referential and just like a bit naff really, like those two songs for me. And then there's other ones like Down Came the Rain's just a bit boring, Losing You, I don't even know where that one goes, to be honest. Help Yourself is alright, but it's a bit of a disappointing record here overall. Okay, next up now at number 14, we've got another slightly more recent album here. So we've got Long Wave here.
Have mercy, mercy on me. Well, I went to see the gypsy to have my fortune read. She said, man, your baby's gonna leave you. Her bags are packed up under the bed. I cried, have mercy.
So this is a covers album, like the Jeff Lynne like that he released in 2012, and this is a fun album. Like, I actually do really enjoy this record. I think it is a nice song selection, like he does like on here, like a good mix of kind of like sort of like ballads, and then like some slightly more like upbeat like songs like as well. But like what I also do like about this is like these are songs, like many of which like are like classic songs that like a lot of people like will like really know and like hold like sort of like the originals like in like high like regard. But I like on here that he isn't trying to recreate the original song, because he's putting the Jeff Lynne production and spin like on like these songs, which I think just really works. Like some of like my favorites like on here would be Mercy Mercy. I think it's a really good song. So Sad like the Everly Brothers track's really good. Smile, I think was that Charlie Chaplin who did that one possibly, but yeah, so that's a lovely song. And then I really like his version of like Beyond the Sea, like as well. It's just, there's so many layers of guitars on it. I just really like it. So yeah, I think this is a fun record here. Long Wave, yeah, comes in at number 14. Okay, next up now at number 13, we're going again back to the early period of ELO now for their second album, which is ELO 2. So this album, I think, is a bit of a weird one, because I think in parts it's quite underrated, but then in other parts it's kind of I just don't really like care for it. Like really, like it is an album like of contrasts. Like there's two tracks in here that I love, which is Mama and Kuyama, which are just brilliant songs. But then there's like the other tracks, like which I forget what they called it, called like From the End of the Earth or something like that. And then there's another one, I think it's called Boogie Piano Bit or something. And then the cover like of Roll Over Beethoven, I'm just not sold on. Like, yeah, like the cover like of like Roll Over Beethoven like was a big hit for them. And like, yeah, it's a creative version of it, you know, combining actual Beethoven music like with like the Chuck Berry classic. So I think I can understand why it caught people's imagination like at the time, but it's just far too long. This album is probably their most kind of prog album, like in like a way that it's kind of, yeah, there's only 5 tracks in it and all of them are over 7 minutes long. So that works when it's like you talk about like an epic track like Kuyama, which is, I just get lost in that song. Like that's like 11 minutes and it's absolutely brilliant. But then like, yeah, like as I said, like a couple like off like the other ones like are like a little bit weaker, which does definitely like let the album down when you've only got 5 tracks on it. Okay, next up now at number 12, we've got an album here from the 80s, 1983 here. We've got Secret Messages.
The secret messages are calling to me endlessly. They call to me across the air. The messages across the atmosphere, they whisper in your ear. They're calling everywhere.
This album, yeah, 1983, I would characterise this as an ambitious but flawed album. So it was originally supposed to be a double album, but was scaled back, and probably for the best, because the double album is good, but there's just not enough quality material from the sessions to kind of warrant like a double album for me. The pity with this album, though, is what they culled from the double album and what they kept on here was, yeah, some slightly puzzling choices. Gone were great tracks like Hello My Old Friend and Buildings of Eyes, and instead, like on like this single vinyl, they put on stuff like Take Me On and On, which is just a really dull, boring song. Likewise with Letter from Spain and Train of Gold are just like weak songs for me. Like, they're just really uninspired tracks. But there are some good stuff, good moments like on here. Like, I like Secret Messages. It's got a great, it's kind of continuing like the vibe like of like the previous album Time. Very kind of frantic, like sort of not quite like electronic sort of song, but it's definitely got that kind of like that real energy like and drive like to it. I like Loser Gone Wild. Bluebird I think is like really good as well. And then a couple of the opening tracks on side 2 of Strong, Four Little Diamonds, Stranger and Danger Ahead, are all really good songs, I think. So yeah, it is a bit of a mixed bag, this album, and I think if they'd maybe chosen a couple of other tracks from the sessions or like from like the double album version and like replaced Weaker Links, this could have easily been like in like maybe not quite the top 5, but certainly well within the top 10 like off this list. Okay, now at number 11, we have got an interesting record here, like kind of timing and kind of career trajectory wise for Jeff Lynne. We've got Zoom from 2001.
Didn't wanna do it 'cause I know what I find. Really only living in state of mind, yeah. Sometimes you get lost, sometimes you get found in a state of mind. Sometimes you're too high, sometimes you're too down. It's just a state of mind.
So yeah, ELO kind of formally disbanded 1986, and then Jeff Lynne went on and had a like esteemed career really like as like a record producer, like sort of like through like the late 80s, like early 90s. But then kind of like towards the end of like the 90s, I think Jeff Lynne was kind of like, wanting, I guess, some of this success he was having with other artists like for himself. So he kind of brought back like the ELO name and sort of released this album. But it was a bit of a flop, this one here. I just don't think that 2001 had just not enough time had passed really. Like, ELO was still at this point, I mean, like, I wasn't really around. I mean, like, I was born, but I was, like, 3 years old. So, I don't really know what kind of ELO standing was. But my understanding of it is that they were still seen, like, as a little bit naff, really. And, like, kind of, slightly kind of, cheesy kind of 70s disco kind of band. Like, not the kind of sort of credible, band, like, they sort of, like, became, like, in, like, a way, like, by the time he got to Jeff's second comeback, like in 2015. So this album didn't sell a bit. A planned tour like had to get cancelled, and I think like it's like a real shame, because I think this is a half decent album. It is a lot more stripped back ELO sounding. Like, it kind of like the tracks in here like that are just don't have any orchestra on them, are just kind of straight up songs, and I think are really good. So tracks like All Right, State of Mind is a great song, great riff on it. Just for Love's a beautiful song, very Beatles-esque, that one. Stranger on A Quiet Street's great. I think like vocally he's doing some great harmonies on there. And I also really like Melting in the Sun. I think is a really good track. Quite it's quite Dylan-esque, but kind of with a slightly sort of more kind of upbeat kind of like music to it. So I really like that one as well. I think maybe like what is also the fault of this album is it's maybe a bit too long. So there's 13 tracks on like the main album, which doesn't sound like much, but kind of like by the time you get to sort of like track 10, like the third side on here, you're kind of thinking, okay, how many more off these we got to go? It was a common thing for albums in the kind of 90s, early 2000s, to be too long, and I think this one kind of suffers from that a little bit. Okay, so next up now at number 10. This one might raise a couple of eyebrows because it is one of their more highly regarded and well-loved albums. I certainly know that a lot of people would probably have this one quite close to the top. But for me at number 10, I've got El Dorado here from 1974.
Staring at she come out, and I can't
So this is another kind of like quite ambitious sort of album, like a concept album, like once again, and yeah, like I said, like it's often seen like as like one of like their seminal albums as being quite an important record for them in terms of bringing the orchestra like into like the band, like sort of like fully. So like it was recorded like with like I said, like a full orchestra, so yeah, really like sort of like quite ambitious like in scale, like this album. For me, I think when it just kind of falls flat is just some of the songs I think are like really not among like my favourite like ELO tracks. So I'm thinking things like Boy Blue, I think is quite a repetitive song. Poor Boy the Greenwood is just alright. Nobody's Child, not very good actually. I'd say that I'd go as far to say like that's a bad song. And Illusions in G Major is just a kind of run of the mill kind of like 12 bar sort of like rocker really. So yeah, like really kind of like material wise it's a little bit like hit and miss, but there are some gems on here. Certainly like Can't Get It Out of My Head like as like the lead single like is a great song. Mr. Kingdom's a real epic, and yeah, it just really moves along nicely. And the title track El Dorado is one of the best ELO songs going for me. I think that's just absolutely stunning song like El Dorado. So yeah, interesting record here, like one like which yeah Jeff was kind of like you can still kind of sense that he was kind of still learning the ropes a little bit like as like a producer like on here, or kind of how to sort of combine the orchestra with his kind of band sound like they had, like so like yeah, like quite like an interesting record here though, and we'll come in at number 10. Okay, next up now at number 9, another one which will raise a few eyebrows, but very much for different reasons, because I think most people would have this album towards the bottom of their list, but I've got at number 9 Balance of Power here.
You took me by surprise, opened up my eyes. Now we gotta talk this over. Can it really be so serious to be all broken up and delirious? I guess we've really been out of touch, but can it really be so serious? Serious, so serious.
Which I think is a really underrated record. I mean, this is maybe a bit of a guilty pleasure one, possibly, because this is often seen, like I said, like as like a weak album, like for like ELO. It is drenched in 80s production, but I think despite that, and I don't mind like 80s production generally, but I think this has actually got some of Jeff Lynne's very best songs in it. Probably some of his most personal songwriting, like on this album. So tracks like yeah, So Serious, Getting to the Point, Secret Lives, they're all kind of concerning like I guess like the ending like of like a like relationship. Likewise like on like the second half as well, things like Without Someone and Calling America, sort of about yeah sort of like yeah like trying to phone up like your sort of like your partner like on like the other side of that side like off the world, but she's kind of like not like picking up like the phone kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know if Jeff was going through some relationship difficulties like around this time, but this album just feels yeah very personal like to him actually, and I think is a really underrated record. It's different it's different like for like ELO, but I definitely like I can kind of see the kind of progression from this to something like Alone in the Universe or even Zoom kind of thing, like that more kind of stripped back like sort of sound, like I think so yeah Balance of Power I think is a really underrated album. Okay, that's not now at number 8. We have got their third album here, which is entitled On the Third Day.
Why do they say the word is day? I guess it's deeper just the love that you gave. I don't believe, no, I don't believe.
So this was released 1973, and it definitely continued the kind of proggy vein like of like the last album, ELO 2, but with more of a kind of slightly more focused songwriting like on here. The first side is really good. It's a kind of sweet like off songs. So you get like tracks like like King of the Universe, Bluebird is Dead, Oh No Not Susan, and New World Rising, which all kind of flow into one another, which I think for me kind of like as individual songs they're maybe not much, but I think when you kind of put them together it probably feels stronger like than like it maybe actually is. Like I think it really just flows well, that first side. And then the second side is maybe a bit like of a mixed bag. Like you've got Mama Ma Belle, which is a really good song, great guitar riff on that one, and Dreaming of 4000, which is really again like underrated track. But then you get stuff like Daybreaker, which is more just a kind of Richard Tandy kind of messing about sort of song, and then their cover of In the Hall of the Mountain King, which is a pretty good version of it, like I have to say, but it still just maybe feels a little bit like it's just like an instrumental cover song, you know, but it is a like a good version, like it always I think it was always like in like their live set and like always went down like quite well. Okay, next up now at number 7, we have got their album from 1979 here, and it is Discovery.
You wanna stay out with your fancy friends? I'm telling you, it's gotta be the end. Don't bring me down. No, 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 no. I'll tell you once more before I get off the floor. Don't bring me down.
So this is probably ELO's most poppy. I wouldn't be surprised like if it's also their best selling and kind of like most successful album, because this kind of followed like 2 really big albums, and then this came out and had I think something like 5 top 10 singles like on it, which I think broke like a couple like off like records. Like I think it wasn't until Michael Jackson's Thriller that like a single album like would yield as many top 10 hits. But yeah, like I think like this has got some really good stuff like on it. Like Shine a Little Love like is a really good like disco number. Confusion is a good song. Maybe like a little bit forgotten like as a single because he doesn't play it live at all, but I think it's like a really good song. But definitely for me, my favourites are Last Train to London, which is just an absolutely great song, and Don't Bring Me Down, which is a great rocker. And then really aside from those, I mean, there's not really much else I got here. I mean, Diary like of Horace Wimp, yeah, I used to like that song like a lot more like than I do now. I think it's maybe a little bit cringy, that one now. Wishing is really good though, and On the Run like is like a lot of fun like as well. So there's a lot of good worthy material like on this album, despite like 1 or 2 missteps. So yeah, that is Discovery at number 7. Next up now, I am actually a little bit surprised myself that I've got this album so high, but when I've been kind of listening back through all of these records, this is one that actually kind of either stood out or was just a kind of like, oh, that's a lot stronger than I remembered it being. So we've got number 6, Alone in the Universe here. This really was the big comeback album for Jeff Lynne and ELO. So he'd done Zoom in 2001, which we've already touched on was a bit of a failure, and then spent many years again like The Wilderness, eventually then coming back with a covers album and an album of redos. So that was Long Wave and the Mr. Blue Sky compilation. And then this, which was like his first album of original material in would have been something like I think 14 years like by this point, so it was quite a big deal like when it came out, and I think is a really strong solid collection of songs. In contrast to like From Out of Nowhere, I think a lot of these tracks like feel quite distinctive sort of thing. So you get like When I Was a Boy, which is a nostalgic song. It's about him like looking back like at dreaming and like dreaming of being a sort of rock star basically. And like, I think like it's like a really, really beautiful song. You've also got like When the Night Comes, which has kind of got almost kind of like a slightly kind of reggae vibe to it. That song feels like it could have fitted on the Bounce of Power album, for example. And then closing off side one, you get The Sun Will Shine on You, which is just a really, really, really beautiful track. I love the kind of low-key production work like on that one. That's really good. And then side two's pretty strong as well. Like I said, it kicks off with like Ain't It a Drag, which is a really good rocker. Like that is a great like rock song. Much better than any of the rockers like on like From Out of Nowhere. And then you've also got like One Step at a Time, which is a kind of Discovery-esque disco track. So for me, it feels like on here, like he's kind of picking out bits and kind of styles and references like from throughout like his like career, and I think like it's like like a really successful album like overall. So yeah, Alone in the Universe will come in at number 6. Okay, now at number 5, I was really struggling with where to put this album because it's not one that I listen to too often, but I kind of just played it again, and it was again better than I remembered it being. So we've got Face of Music here. So definitely again seen as one of the peak ELO albums. I think it is like quite like an ambitious, a little bit kind of proggy sort of album. Like, so this followed up El Dorado, so we kind of stripped back the orchestra and kind of made it a bit more like about like the band again, but again kind of refining the sound like a lot more. So yeah, like tracks in here like Fire on High, which is this it's almost scary kind of like instrumental like opening track. Maybe feels a bit like overindulgent perhaps, but it's just so creative and wacky, like that song. Like, I do really like it. Waterfall's like a good track, and then you get the single Evil Woman. Again, not one of my favourite favourite ELO singles, but a good song though. And my favourite on here is probably Night Rider. I think that's a really, really, really great song. I think that might have been a single, but was definitely a bit of a flop, like if it was. And then like side 2, you get Poker's a fun rocker. Strange Magic, again, not one of my favourite like ELO singles, but then the album then finishes and like the closing track is One Summer Dream, which I just absolutely love. It's such a kind of dreamy kind of like really like almost perfect song there for me, One Summer Dream. So like overall like a strong album here, but one like I was slightly struggling to place because it could have quite easily been here like at number 5, or further down like the list like as well. But number 5 is where I thought I would put it, Face the Music. Okay, now at number 4, we've got again another one which might surprise quite a few people, but I think again this is a really underrated record. So it is Armchair Theatre, which is a Jeff Lynne's solo album from 1990.
So lift me up, finish what you started, take me on for a ride, lift me up from the broken hearted, rivers deep and wide.
So this was the album he made kind of when he was basically at his peak, like as a producer for other artists. I perhaps thinking, okay, I'm having some hits here with kind of Tom Petty and like the Wilburys, and maybe I can have a bit of this like on like my own. But like it never came to him, which I think like is like a real shame, because this is a really, really solid album. Like the tracks like on here, like it ranges really from anthemic kind of kind of poppy songs, so stuff like Lift Me Up, What Would It Take, and Every Little Thing. sing, through to kind of sort of ballad stuff like Don't Say Goodbye is quite Roy Orbison-esque. Blown Away, I think, was co-written with Tom Petty, that one, and that's a really, really, really good song. And then you then get a couple of cover songs like as well, like as a kind of precursor to the Long Wave project. So he does stuff like Stormy Weather, September Song, and a little rockabilly number called Don't Let Go. So yeah, I think this is a really strong, underappreciated album that more people just need to hear. Okay, now we are in the top 3, and this really is the big 3. You know, like, kind of going into this video, I was certain that this would be the top 3, just not quite sure what order like they would go in, but I've kind of settled like on this one for today. So at number 3, I'm going for 1976's A New World Record.
You're losing all the time, you never win. No, if you believe that's how it's gonna be, I better put you down. Get up, you take your butt, they're coming out on the ground. You gotta save me now, you better turn around. And I looked around, I was heading down on somebody throw me down the line.
Which, yeah, I think for many people is probably the peak ELO album in terms of it being both sort of like ambitious and having the kind of classic ELO sound, but also not being too overindulgent either. I think this is just a great record. Starts with Tightrope, which is one of my favourite opening tracks on any album, frankly. I think that just song just builds up so well, and it's just such a great way to kick off the album. That then goes into Telephone Line, which is a classic ELO ballad, and then Rock Audio. I mean, Rock Audio is all right. It's not a favourite track of mine, and Mission is more kind of has that kind of early kind of spacey like ELO feel. Like that song Mission feels like it could have slotted in to something like On the Third Day, for example. And side 2, there's some great tracks as well. So Fine, I think, is underrated. Living Thing, another classic single, and Do Ya is actually like an old Move song, but this ELO version is probably like the definitive version. And then finishes with Shangri-La, which is again a great kind of closer, just really again very Beatles-esque, kind of references the Beatles, like it faded like the Beatles on Hey Jude, like goes like the chorus, which is a line that always makes me smile. So yeah, A New World Record here, really, really, really strong album. Okay, and at number 2, I'm going for their 1981 album here, Time.
Time just rolls on and on. When you need a shoulder to cry on, when you get so sick of trying, just hold on tight to your dream.
So this really was a kind of change in direction for ELO. I think this is one of their seminal albums, because essentially, like on here, Jeff, I think, kind of realised he kind of taken the kind of A New World Record out of the blues sound as far like as he could, and just needed to do something new. So basically gone were the string section, so there's no more orchestra in the Electric Light Orchestra. Paired it back to the core 4-man lineup, and made a record here which is almost kind of a little bit like electronic-y, like in places, and kind of like he's exploring different sounds. So going through some of the tracks, stuff like Twilight is just drenched in synths. It's a little bit cheesy, but I just love it. You really get sort of sucked into this album in the kind of whole vibe of it, and also the fact it is this kind of concept album, this kind of time traveling kind of concept album, and I think really works. Actually, particularly the first side has a real narrative to it. Going through Twilight, Yours Truly 2095 is about this guy being in love with his computer, and then going into things like Ticket to the Moon, The Way Life's Meant to Be. And then side 2 is more kind of maybe a little bit more disjointed, but I think has got some great songs. Stuff like Rain Is Falling, The Lights Go Down, 21st Century Man, and then finishing off with Hold On Tight, which is just, again, like a good bit of fun. So I think this is a really strong record here by ELO. Time, at number 2 for me. But at number 1, I've gone for maybe the obvious choice, perhaps, but Out of the Blue at number 1 here.
On the streets where once was pretty Mr. Blue. Sky is living here today. Hey. Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why you had to hide away for so long. Where did we go wrong? Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why you had to hide away for so long. Where did we go wrong?
So yeah, I guess some might say this is maybe a bit too indulgent. It is a proper double album, this one, but I think has got like a great claim to be, you know, like a double album, because like sort of like all like is like I think like there is like enough material like on here to justify it being like a double album, like kind of good quality material. So starting off with Turn to Stone, which again like is like a great opener, going through Sweet Talking Woman, Across the Border, Night in the City, maybe tails off a little bit like in the middle like of side 2, Starlight, and it's okay. Jungle's fun but a bit like inconsequential, but really the kind of highlight on this album is the side 3, Concerto for a Rainy Day, which is just 4 songs which again kind of feel like this kind of like this kind of like mini opera kind of thing, sort of songs like about the weather basically, and how they can kind of sort of like change out your moods and that. So Standing in the Rain is quite a kind of progressive song and like is really strong. Big Wheels is just a beautiful ballad. I love like the middle 8th like on that is just stunning. Summer and Lightning is like a lot of fun, and then it ends with Mr. Blue Sky, which is really the definitive ELO song there. Great artwork like on this album like as well, it has to be said, just with the kind of like the classic spaceship on it. This is, you know, their signature album, and I think for good reason, because it really doesn't let up like throughout like its like entire like length. Like even like onto side 2 you've got really underrated stuff like Sweet is the Night, Birmingham Blues, and then finishing with the classic Wild West Hero. So yeah, this is the best ELO album for me, Out of the Blue at number 1. So yeah, I hope you have enjoyed that video there. Like I certainly like enjoyed like making it, and yeah, revisiting some of these albums like after, I guess in some cases quite a few years like I've not actually like hearing them. So no, like it's been a fun video to do this. Let me know what your favorite ELO albums are in the comments, and I'll see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye.